Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Business. I'm your host, Kay Miller, also known as Muffler Mama. Stay tuned as I, along with my guests, give you marketing, sales, and personal branding strategies that will give you an uncopyable advantage. In this episode, I'm with Megan Tanel. Megan is the president and CEO of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, also called AEM, since that's a mouthful. She started this role in 2022. She's been with AEM since 1995 and, believe it or not, started as an intern. Then she was recently Senior Vice President of Exhibitions and Events. And in that capacity, she led initiatives that resulted in an 80% growth in trade show revenue over the last 12 years. Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Now, I've known you for many years mostly through Steve's work, and so it's been fun to watch your career really grow. I wanted to mention that when we talk about ConExpo, that it is North America's largest trade show. And again, you've grown that revenue 80% with help from your team, obviously. And that's just really fascinating because one thing that interests me, also me being from a male-dominated industry, what that's been like. So I'd just like to start out, Megan, with just talking a little bit about your path from intern to CEO. That sounds like a great title. That'll be title of my podcast.
Someday we'll co-write a book together, Kay. From
there you go.
CEO. Yeah, I feel extremely lucky for my path. It's been a fun path to be on. I think a lot of it's what I do and how I do it and where I've come from does really suggest my personality, meaning I am a people person. I really enjoy talking to people, listening to people. I like to build relationships. And when you look across the many generations that we have out there right now, there's varying degrees of understanding the importance of relationships, I feel. And I received some significant mentoring early on in my career. Pick up the damn phone. Just pick up the phone and talk to someone. It was before cell phones, right? When we started and all of that. And there was just so much put around having a conversation as opposed to shooting an email or now sending a text or something like that. I put a lot of this on just having a conversation, finding areas of opportunity where we could work with another group to the mutual benefit of both of our organizations, negotiating, kind of meeting people halfway, demanding everything be my way and not laying down and letting someone else have everything their way, finding some ways to meet in the middle, to compromise and build a joint vision as to what is success for both organizations. To me, that did help to build the support and the engagement around the growth with our show. Because I represent a trade association and when we do events, we do it on behalf of the entire industry. It's not just what I want, it's what my members want. And when you're in events, there's an ecosystem. There's all these various groups that are represented. And you can find opportunity to achieve success for each of those groups. It just leads you down this path of this mutual growth and great success for everyone. So I kind of say I'm using a lot of it now, just talk to people and build a relationship as opposed to bulldozing or assuming or taking for granted or any of those things.
I especially like something that you said, because I talk about this a lot in sales, about a solution that benefits both parties. And in sales especially, I feel like we get so wrapped up in what we have and how great it is that we forget to really focus on the customer or whoever else, in your case, that you want to partner with. And you also said that you build a vision together, but you need to stand up for yourself, and that compromise means that you need to win too. And so there has to be, I have a chapter in my book called Win-Win. And it's so true. If you make the win clear to them, the other party, then you also, of course, have to look out for yourself. But I like that attitude. So You talked about, I know your people skills are great, and I've watched those skills over the years, but you also have to have some strategy and, like I said, some of that toughness to grow a show, the revenue by 80%. So, what kinds of things would you attribute to that to beyond the people skills? I know people are a huge
So
part of it.
yeah, for me, it's this need to be authentic and open and honest as to maybe what the goals are. Talk about strategy. You have a strategy, but you need to have some scenario planning wrapped around that strategy. Your vision or your strategy might be X, but there's also Y and Z, right? That could impact that. So when it comes to the building, having that strategy that's going to lead us towards success or whatever it is, it's visioning that the end game. But in that vision, it's choose your own adventure. Remember those books? If this
Yeah.
and this and that, you remember reading that? I know I'm dating myself, but I
Well,
can't help that.
I'm older than you, but yeah, that's right. Choose your adventure.
So we want to grow something. For us, it was finding the right partners. It was casting a wide net. So reaching out to groups that maybe some might have considered they're not worth your time. Others, you asked them already. They said no. There's nothing wrong with asking again. And if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you ask or you ask again. Again, build that relationship, get to know somebody, build some mutual trust, and then start building that joint vision that in your mind leads to your end game, your strategy of what you're looking for. For us, it's clarifying, what are the wins? Are the wins just making a bigger event, having more people show up at that event, and bigger could be by space. I know your group doesn't necessarily just know trade shows. This could be for any sort of event that you're building, right? Know your customers and your customers' customers. And then the strategy was to go wide, and then you're bringing that in and you're figuring out what works and what fits. And things you're going to say no to, and you have to be able to say no. You can't let your vision override what the right plan is, giving everything away, right? You just want to close a deal. That doesn't do anybody any good. And there's holding people accountable as you're developing this vision together. Who's doing what and how are they doing it? I think there's a lot to it. For me, yeah, I'm going to go back. It's the authenticity. It's being in person. None of us are robots. You get to know somebody a little bit more personally than just business, and they're more willing to work with you, or maybe they're willing to be a little bit more flexible. Also knowing that growth takes time. We had long-term goals related to our growth. It wasn't just a short-term win. We didn't want to have an explosion of engagement in 1 year and then potentially lose that. In years, there's opportunity to grow and to build upon your success measured growth. Short-term wins for us don't do anything as far as representing the industry. It's all about that long-term growth and sustainability. So I think that all just fed in together with that. For us too, when you have a product or something, it's knowing who you're talking to or who you're selling to or who you're marketing to, and then being willing to listen to them and what their needs and wants are. Again, it's that compromising as you're going along. If I'm there to just take somebody over or bring somebody along and not listen to what they're concerned, I'm going to lose them. That could be part of that short-term growth, but then long-term loss, where instead, if I'm cultivating that relationship and getting their feedback and doing pulse checks along the way to know how things are going, that just leads me to that longer term relationship, which leads to long term.
Interesting that you say listening, because I think that is probably the number one mistake of salespeople and probably people in your position too. I mentioned it before. I think before we started recording, that we love our product, we love our show, we know how valuable it is, but really it's, what does this mean to your customer, your prospect?
Yeah.
And
We all want to be heard, right? We all want to be heard. So
we want to be heard and understood. And especially now, you and I, we've been around since before cell phones, but people are so isolated now. And so sometimes listening and really understanding your customer can be maybe the only time they experience that in a day. One of my chapters in my book is think like Sherlock. So if someone tells you, you ask a question and they tell you something, you ask another question. as you said, if someone is understood and heard, that goes a long way. And of course, in your case and sales, long-term relationships. You don't want to, as you said, compromise your future results because you want to make a big splash for 1 year. So long-term thinking. And the fact that you say vision is a new word, how long would you say that we've been talking about vision instead of just goals?
I feel like vision has been around, when you say newer, maybe in the last 10 years or something like that. And they have this, now you hear about people with their vision boards. We don't have a vision board, but to me, that almost sounds, yeah, that was our business plan. That's your vision board, was our business plan. Maybe just more graphics. But I think it's, if you don't, you're just going at things blind.
And vision is a really all-encompassing word. Like you said, when you talk about business plans, things that are just black and white, vision really brings in that creativity, and you can dream and you can say, what if this happens?
So I think it's got to be broad. Your vision, sometimes things can be a little fuzzy, right? In the peripheral, but you need to stay aware of that because there could be opportunity that's presented to soften it a little bit that maybe you weren't laser focused on. But I like the thought of keeping your mind open to other opportunities or things that might present themselves.
You talked a little bit about balancing things, and I want to point out the fact that you have 4 lovely daughters. And I remember Steve said, Megan's pregnant again.
You heard it a lot in my industry. Like I'd show up at a meeting, oh, you're pregnant again. I was, yeah, it's
only 4 girls and worth every moment, right? So speak a little bit, because women normally have a lot of the child rearing responsibilities. And I know you were very involved with your kids growing up and still are. So women are wondering about that. So how did that work and continue? How does that work in your life? And work?
Yeah, I think everyone needs to have their own story and their own way of doing things. So I would never come out or come at someone and say, this was my way, I did it my way, or you should do this way. And everyone is different. And we all make choices for how we're going to take on our lives. And I look at work. I look at work as part of my life. So when we talk about balance, for me, it's a life balance. It doesn't have to be for everyone. And I don't mean that my family has to be 100% integrated into my work life. It's not at all what I mean. It's just, this is my life. And in my life, I have all these different things, right? And there's all these different things I have to balance. And one of those things, one of the most important things for me is being a mother. But I was extremely fortunate because I was having kids or nursing them or whatever. My mom would sometimes come with, or my husband would be able to come with after we had 2 kids. It was a couple of years. And then my career had more opportunity than my husband's at the time. And so he ended up staying home. My travel was pretty significant. So whether he stayed home with all the kids or with 2 of the kids and some would travel with me or whatever, we were able to make it work. That also came with choices. We were down to 1 income. And so we drove that same minivan till it was dead, right? The way we cleaned it was we let the dog in and eat all the Cheerios and fish crackers off the floor, and the minivan was clean. And we stayed in our same house for quite a few years just because it was important to us that one parent can stay home. Again, everyone can make different choices with that. But I think also part of that being authentic is I never felt like I had to hide the fact that I was a mom. I think coming out, there were a lot of women before me that were just trying to show they could do everything and do it all and pretend that nothing was going to necessarily have an impact on them. And that's just not necessarily how it might be. I've got to take this call, or there's a concert going on, I'm flying home tonight, or I would need to leave a meeting to go pump, or I would have to do all those things, whatever it is you have to do, and not be shy about that. But I didn't use it. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't an excuse. It wasn't looking for credit or sympathy. It was my life, and it was my choice to balance it the way I did. And so I also never really wanted to be recognized or called out necessarily for how I did things, because those were my choices. And I had someone, the story made me angry. he said, one of my employees said she can't travel because she's pumping. And I said, Megan Tanel from AAM just went to Europe. And I said, wait a minute. No, don't use me as the example of what she should be. She's making decisions based on what is best for her. I'm making decisions based on what's best for me. And please don't use me as the example for others. It wasn't easy. It's not easy. But working in a very male dominated industry, I was lucky to have the support I did and the opportunities I did where, yeah, you know what, we're going to wait 20 minutes while Megan runs back to her room and helps. And then we're going to start the meeting or whatever it is. So again, not everyone's comfortable talking about those things or doing those things. But for me, it was important to try to find that balance. I also I never wanted to be judged or anything. Oh, it's because she's a woman, she got this job, or it's because that frustrates me. I really just like to look at opportunity and who's the best person for this job and make sure that we're including diverse voices and diverse experiences. And that's what makes a strong team, is having diversity of experience, voice, background, and gender and race and all of those things. But don't ever say that she traveled so much because she knew she had to work harder because she's a woman. That was my choice. You know, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing because every generation wants something different and looks at things differently. But that's how it worked for us.
And it sounds like it worked very well. It does, in that case, take a village, as the saying goes. And one thing I really like about you, and you're talking about your experience as, you know, a working mom due to your choice. And of course, you had help, but you are very real and authentic. And I think that's so important. I've known about your girls, seen pictures of your girls. I've never seen your husband. I mean, he's probably in there, but your girls are getting the spotlight. But so you are. Is there something about you, just your personality, that you are authentic? What is what you get? Here's my life. Some women feel, like you said, they have to keep that button down, but you don't.
I don't know how to answer that. Okay, when I think about my job and I would reflect on this I did reflect on this. Sometimes I wonder, like, why aren't I intimidated to be in the room with these people? Or why am I not afraid to ask this CEO personal questions that's coming up in my career? And all I could think about is that my parents did a really great job of raising us to just believe you belong. You are enough and you belong, and don't sell yourself short. Now, that doesn't mean that you come across with this huge ego and you know who I am and I'm super important. You should listen to me. But instead, it's that we're all people. There's an equalizer there. And some people are in their roles because of who their parents are. Some people are in their roles maybe because where they went to school or just the timing of when they walked in or whatever it was. And that it's important to know just that you belong. So I think I just was raised to be a very authentic person. We were a pretty open family, and I hope I'm doing that with my kids as well. But I never really felt intimidated if I would walk into a boardroom. I should get nervous. Of course you get nervous, right? But I just never really felt intimidated because I would tell myself, I'm here for a reason. I can bring some value. I belong. My job might be to sit and listen, and I will. And soak it all up and learn so much, and then be able to provide value back, whether it's in feedback or research that I've done or related to what my specific role was. So
that confidence is really a big deal. And it sounds like you had an advantage being raised by parents who really helped you be confident. And the term that comes to mind for me is deserve a seat at the table. We hear that. And I'm going to go back to Rhonda White. I just mentioned her, I think, before the show, and she answered a want ad and became CEO, a story similar to yours, of RSC. I can't remember the exact acronym, refrigeration service, something. And she was at a meeting early on in her career. And she went into a meeting and one of her mentors, who was a man, because everyone was a man, said, when we go into this meeting, I want you to not talk. Just don't talk. And of course, yeah, you're reacting. That was her reaction. Did you ever have that kind of pushback from men?
Not my direct boss or mentor. I was very fortunate. You mentioned they were all men. It was so important. There were and there are men and just people in general that will create a path for others to come along, to join or to have a seat at the table. And I was extremely lucky to have somebody offer me that opportunity. They didn't necessarily hold me back. They offered me the opportunity to be there, to participate, to be at the table. And that's my job to do the same for other people too. Of course, you belong. And man, woman, whatever they might be. But yeah, there were plenty of times, especially I started very young in this industry. And so as I was moving along, I was a young woman coming into the room with older middle-aged men. And now I'm a middle-aged woman, but there was surprise. I'm someone's secretary was the assumption, right? But then it was, here's my manager of or director of or vice president of or senior vice president of as I moved along. And the whole point was that I just proved my worth by knowing what I was talking about, right? Presenting myself the best way that I could and showing that I did belong at the table. It's hard if you let someone shut you down, it's not going to help you with anything. I remember being on the call once. This was early in my career and somebody was complaining about something. They'd gotten something stolen or whatever. And he got really angry. And he was like, wasn't here, sweetheart. And I was saying all this stuff. And I said, sir, I go, hey, Cupcake, my name's not Sweetheart. You can call me Megan. And he stopped. And then, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Now let's move forward. You don't have to be, you shouldn't have to be treated that way. And if you aren't treated that way, you got to find somewhere else because you're not appreciated.
The fact that your retort was cupcake, that's brilliant. One word just to diffuse the whole situation. I come from a male-dominated industry too, and I don't think either of us would be where we are or have gotten as far if we didn't have the support of men. And in my experience, is very similar. My experience is very similar, where at first glance, you have to prove your credibility or you have to create that credibility. And then once you do that, I think the men also enjoy that diversity. They enjoy having more well-rounded.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of it is about education too. We're all learning as we're getting older. And I appreciate that there are enough people within each generation that are open to learning and understanding. Okay, this is what I thought. I understand you thought that, but this is the reality, or this is how we can work together, or this is how I should be treating you and you should be treating me, and we'll go forward that way. So I appreciate the growth mindset that I see in a lot of people.
Making that clear is also really important because, somebody assumes you're a secretary and you're bold and saying, actually not.
It's okay to have boundaries, share what those boundaries are.
You've shared a lot about what you've done, and I think it's pretty clear a lot of the qualities that have made you successful. As we get toward the end of the interview, what advice would you have to other women, maybe especially in male-dominated industries, but really all women trying to move forward in this world?
Raise your hand, show up, volunteer to take on this role or this job, or whatever it is. Don't be afraid to go to the table or ask. If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. And if it is a no, okay, but now at least you've asked the question. Don't be afraid to want to be somewhere or ask to be somewhere or say, hey, I think I could bring some value to this. Do you mind? Or even just show up and listen or whatever it is. But raise your hand. Don't wait. Don't sit back and wait. And then if the answer is no, it's okay to say, oh, I totally understand. Help me. Tell me what is it I need to work on, or what is the next opportunity for me? Or I'm really interested in X. I just would like to get a little bit more experience in it. If you're looking to grow and you want to expand, whether it's your knowledge or your skill set or just your reach within the organization, show an interest and show up. Be there. Be involved, right? And ask the question, can I be there? Can I help you? Can I support that? Whatever it is.
Your concept of being okay with a no and going from there. I interviewed a woman named Andrea Walsh, and she's the co-author of a book, Go for No. And she made the point, among and many other points, that unless you hear a no, you never know how far you could have gotten.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that tells you, okay, I'm pushing the boundaries and the possibility.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here, Megan. You're somebody I really admire for so many reasons. And I know that the listener, you listening, are getting a lot out of this and really some ideas. Some of the things that we talk about on the podcast, maybe we know a lot of them, but we need to be reminded. It needs to be reinforced. We need examples like you, Megan. So I really appreciate you. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kate. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Business. See you next time, and always remember to be uncopyable.